In 2008, a Russian archaeologist picked up a tiny piece of bone in a cave in Siberia. It was smaller than a grain of rice, a fragment of a child's pinky finger. Nobody thought much of it. They had no idea they were holding one of the most important fossils in the history of human science. The cave is called Denisova Cave, tucked into the Altai Mountains of southern Siberia. For thousands of years, it had been home to different groups. Neanderthals at one point, modern humans at another. So when researchers found that finger bone, the assumption was simple. Probably a Neanderthal child, maybe an early human. They sent it to a lab in Germany for DNA testing, just to confirm. The results came back in 2010, and they didn't confirm anything. The DNA didn't match Neanderthals. It didn't match modern humans either. It was something else, something science had never documented before. A new branch on the human family tree, identified not by a skull, not by a skeleton, but by a single bone fragment and a few strands of genetic code. They named this new population the Denisovans, after the cave where they were found. Here's what makes this discovery so strange. Most human species we know about, we know because we found their bones, their skulls, their tools, their cave paintings. The Denisovans gave us almost none of that. To this day, scientists have identified Denisovan remains from only a handful of fragments. A finger bone, a few teeth, part of a jawbone. That's it. An entire branch of humanity, known almost entirely through genetics, not through skeletons. Which is why some researchers call them the ghost species. We know they existed, we know roughly when, but we've barely seen them. So how do we know anything about them at all? Because of what they left inside us. When scientists compared Denisovan DNA to modern human populations around the world, they found something remarkable. People from Southeast Asia, Papua New Guinea, and parts of Oceania carry measurable amounts of Denisovan DNA in their genome. In some populations, up to 4 to 6%. That means somewhere, tens of thousands of years ago, Denisovans and the ancestors of modern humans didn't just cross paths, they interbred. And the story gets even more interesting. In 2014, researchers studying Tibetan populations found something unusual. Tibetans carry a unique version of a gene called EPAS1, a gene that helps the body manage low oxygen levels. It's the reason many Tibetans can live and work at extreme high altitude without the health problems that affect most other humans at the same elevation. When scientists traced the origin of this gene variant, they found it didn't come from modern humans at all. It came from the Denisovans, a population that lived in Siberia, somehow passed down a genetic survival tool that still helps people breathe on the Tibetan plateau today. Think about that for a second. A species we've never even seen a face of, no skull reconstruction, no museum bust, nothing that tells us what they looks like, left behind a biological gift that's still functioning in living humans right now. So why don't we know more? Partly because of where they lived. Siberia's climate isn't kind to bones. Most organic material doesn't survive that long. And partly because we've only been looking for 15 years. Compare that to Neanderthals, who were discovered in 1856. Over a century and a half of research. The Denisovans are still, in many ways, brand new to science. Every year, new analysis techniques are pulling more information out of less and less material. Scientists have identified Denisovan genetic traces not just from bones, but from sediment, literally dirt on a cave floor that once held trace amounts of ancient DNA. Here's what I find most fascinating about this story. We didn't discover the Denisovans by finding them. We discovered them by finding ourselves, by reading the code written inside millions of living people today. If you have ancestry from Southeast Asia or Oceania, there's a real chance that somewhere in your genome, a tiny piece of Denisovan DNA is still doing its job, shaping your immune system, maybe even how your body responds to disease. A species we've almost never seen is still, quietly, part of how you survive. The Denisovans didn't leave behind cities, or tools we can display in museums, or paintings on cave walls. What they left behind was something stranger. They left behind a signature written into the DNA of people alive on Earth right now. A species we can't fully picture, but one we can still, in a very real sense, read. If you want more, subscribe and hit the bell. Don't miss what's coming next.